Today I have the privilege to speak to Pia Kinhult, who is the head of host states relations at ESS, European Spallation Source, a very big and very well-known research facility on material science based in the city of Lund. Pia also has the background as the first governor of Region Skåne, which is the third biggest city and region in Sweden. So thank you for coming and allowing me to dialogue with you on these topics about leadership and innovation in knowledge-based organizations. If we take your two, very high-level leadership roles in political organizations, but also conducting and orchestrating a lot of high-level knowledge with like healthcare in the region Skåne, and now at ESS, what would you say is the kind of 1, 2, 3 key ingredients for leaders with an aspiration to really lead and to create something new for the future? What is your experience and what's your point of view?
Let me just start with thanking you for the invitation. It's very nice to be here and be able to also have this discussion with you. When it comes to that kind of I would say modern leadership that we also need for the future, as you are looking into the future, it is courage, it is openness, and it is also modesty, I would say. I would say it's the three main criteria that you need to actually make a good leader and also create a leadership that we need.
The third word here, modesty, is not so usual in this context. I'm curious, what's behind your thinking?
Behind my thinking there when it comes to modesty is that you need to be not afraid of surrounding you with people that knows more than yourself. To also be humble to the future and the questions on the table. And also to other people's perspectives. For me now, especially what I've learned during the years at ESS, that is a very international organization with colleagues from 56 different countries and nationalities. You really learn how to be humble, how to be open for other ways and views on how things should be solved, how things should be defined. And that, I think, is something you need to bring with you when it comes to leadership.
I think that's very interesting, and I learned in some other conversations and also in my own life that to be humble is a way of understanding that I'm completely dependent on others and their knowledge. That's what I say, I understand.
Exactly, and collaborating in itself is actually to be dependent on others. And it's not only other people, it's other organizations, other solutions. And there is it's very seldom one single answer. It's very, very seldom that you have a right and wrong. There are. Of course, it happens, but very, very seldom actually.
So how do you do then to create a certain culture of the way we think, we speak, we act, and we have different attitudes, with facilitating and enabling people to think great, big thoughts for the future? How do a leader act in practice to be, as you said, more open and more courageous and so on? What does it take?
You need to begin with, you need to learn yourself how to be that and exploit those positive parts of yourself and listen to people. But then, of course, if you have a team, whatever, even if it's a big team or a small team, you need them to let your team understand that you like this. This is the way they are allowed to behave, to be open, to be generous, but also supportive. So you don't leave them alone. You don't just say, oh, go out there and be free and think and through and you have my mandate. You also need to be supportive so they feel that when they feel insecure or they are not sure, they can come to you openly and also confess and say, I didn't know how to deal with that. I don't know what to say. I don't know what kind of decisions can I take. And that is sort of letting people free, but also being supportive. That is, I would say,
it's about trust.
It's trust,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Building trust.
Yeah, yeah.
And building trust you can only do by walk to talk, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. So would you then say I mean, we're sitting here in Sweden, Scandinavia, and the Nordic countries, with our historical background and our maybe hopefully historical future. But what would you say is the contribution, being from Sweden and having this, sometimes people talk about Scandinavia and the Nordic way, what would you say are the pros and cons with the way we behave here when we interact with other nations?
Well, the good thing, I think, is the informality.
Okay.
We are actually very informal.
Yeah.
We also like to have quite, what do you say in English, sort of very close to each other. We don't build very
Hierarchies.
Exactly. Thank you. And that is, of course, I would say in this case a positive thing, because then it's easy to talk with people from different levels and from different organizations, etc.
Yeah.
At the same time, this creates a problem with almost all other countries in the world, all other cultures.
Tell me.
Because we sometimes think that everybody is like that. And we cannot really behave. And we forget how to adapt and also then respect other ways of being. And this is, and I can see that only in our little ESS sort of box. I can see this very clearly when you have Swedish governments coming on a visit, for instance, Swedish governmental ministers or something.
Yeah.
When we say, we need to be informal here, we can't sort of, and the others are like, but how do you behave then? It's so difficult. So it's a pro and cons.
So that means that we maybe create sometimes some uncertainty because we are so informal.
Exactly.
And it's very natural for us, but that creates uncertainty in the relationships.
Exactly. And to be international, you need to also understand that.
Yeah. Well, talking about innovation and knowledge development, all of those kind of processes, what would you say if we analyze what is happening? We're coming out from a very overstructured way, maybe, of knowledge management. We're moving into hopefully more and more, as you said, you need leadership, knowledge leadership. But could it also be that as a third dimension, or third step even, about knowledge flow, which means people come together from different countries with different projects and being more mature in who you are and in collaboration, you can allow the knowledge to flow and to innovate and reinvent itself. Do you think we have you have some great experience at ESS and Region Skåne for these types of processes?
Well, both yes and no, I would say. When it comes to ESS, for instance, I mean, we are working in what we call in the EU, the open source, open data world, open science. And of course, the research world, the academic world has been open. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that kind of development in research that we have, because you need to work in an open space together. Yeah. And I think that could be a role model, really, to translate that into other areas and also keep that all the way in a process. But so that could be a good model. I must say, from my other experience working in sort of a Swedish region and also as a Swedish authority, it is a little bit the other way around. And they should bring with them this kind of more creating an open platform and be able to allow yourself to also let knowledge flow in another way. I think that is important. So we should learn from research and the academic world into other areas. Then, of course, at the same time, if you're going to live on a thing, you need to be commercial, and you need also, of course, to own your rights. So there's a balance, of course, how far you can go with this. But I think there are solutions to that. I think we can find ways to both be able to live on something, a good idea, to make that into something that you can also earn money from, but at the same time being open. I think we can find models for it. But then, of course, you need to meet with other people and share this experience and see how do we find that balance, how do we find that model.
Yeah, that maybe would be like, if I interpret what you say, we need to integrate both the traditional evidence-based research, but we would like to energize the future, and maybe we need to embrace also people who have a different point of view. Maybe they are more into foresearch than research, which means they try to capitalize of the future today with a high-level imagination. And I think it was Steve Jobs who said there are two kinds of people. There's high imaginative people and low imaginative people. And that brings us finally to the topic of creativity. How do you foster a culture and leaders who can energize creativity when you are in a high-level competition between nations and different science areas and science issues? What would you say is the way, or some of the ways, for embarking on that route for the future?
Courage. And at the same time, I mean, talking about the three parts that we have talked about today, about sort of the knowledge base, the flow, etc.
Yeah.
Look at social media.
Yeah.
Look at the companies created by that created social media, we should say.
Yeah.
They have been very open-based. They have created a lot of creativity, and they are earning quite a lot of money.
Yes.
And they are today, most of them, global companies.
Yeah.
And sometimes even taking over, it feels like other parts of society in a way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are both maybe, to a certain extent, warning examples, and at the same time, you can do it. You can be both open, you can have the flow, but you can also actually be able to also create wealth. At the same time.
Yeah.
The thing is to find the balance in between these three parts.
Yeah.
But you need to be also very bold.
Yeah. So we summarize with boldness and courage into this. And I think, let me say, I think it's about sometimes people say we go with the flow. And we would go with the flow. And about what I hear here from Peja, there is a process which is new to me in my thinking. It's not slow motion, it's flow motion. So knowledge flow motion for the future of leadership and innovation in knowledge-based organizations. Thank you very much, Peja, for coming and sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. And with these words, we say thank you for looking into this, and we hope to see you again. And we will be back with different topics and trying to energize the future to come in a more rapid way, so to speak. So thank you for listening. Take care. Bye for now.